One time, participated in girls, we had one right. Sometimes we weren't sure if we had the right one.
30.
All right, good evening. Welcome to the Southeast Polk special board meeting for September 28, 2021. Karen, can we give roll call?
Handy,
Here.
Crab,
Here.
Fisher, Nave,
Here.
Slings,
Here.
Krell,
Here.
Powell,
Here.
So we have a forum, so open meeting. 1B, agenda adoption. Are there any changes to this agenda?
No.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Karen?
Crab,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Krell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes. All right, 1C, district vision and mission. Right.
At Southeast Polk, we learn, lead, and live success for college, career, and civic life. Engage all students in learning a challenging curriculum delivered through quality instruction.
Thank you very much. All right, now's the time, 1D for public comments. I'll read this really quick, just so everybody understands what the guidelines are. Board recognizes the importance of citizen participation in the school district matters. Citizens wishing to address the board must do so during the public forum portion of the agenda. Citizens need to complete a public comment card prior to the meeting and then give the superintendent or board reporter, you can bring them up here. The public cards are located on the back table if you didn't see them. If an individual wishes to address the board of education, time is limited to 3 minutes. And then if you have a group, 5 minutes. We would kind of hope that we know everybody has some of the similar ideas. So if you have different thoughts of what somebody else says, please kind of maybe brush over those same thoughts that we've already heard. Maybe we won't hear duplicates, maybe we will, but if you do, just kind of keep that in mind to stick to the points that have not been spoken about. The board president will recognize these individuals and make their comments at the appropriate time. Which, when I call your name, just make sure you come up, state your name. We'll come right over here to the podium, state your name, address, and then what you're here to speak on. So it doesn't necessarily have to be about the topic at hand, return to learn. So only those speakers recognized by the board president will be allowed to speak, and comments by others are out of order. If disruptive, the individual causing disruption may be asked to leave the boardroom. So,
Point of inquiry, President Andy, our usual practice is that during public comments is that we will receive the comments, but we ourselves do not comment. Are we holding to that tonight, or do you wish to alter that format?
well, I think what we'll do is we'll listen to what the public has to say first, and then if any board member decides that they want to respond to a question or something that has come up during that.
So we are altering our traditional format then? It's your choice. You're the
No,
board president.
I'm just saying, if we're going to listen, if nobody wants to ask questions or respond to anything, then we'll just carry on the way we are.
Okay, so we can work with that.
But as individuals come up, yeah, we'll get through everything. And there. All right, first, Amanda Hall. Well, we could save your.
All right, see, and that gives me no opportunity to trim my speech down because I'm first. So, so there you go. So, Amanda Hall, Altoona. I have one student at Southeast Polk, used to be 2. So as of last Friday, there were less than 1% of students testing positive for COVID-19, according to the Southeast Polk website. According to the COVID-19 dashboard, on September 23rd, there were 60 reported cases out of approximately 7,000 students in the district. That is 0.85% of total students. That rate is very consistent with that of the CDC in children 0 to 17 years of age, less than 1%. Cases of COVID-19, less than 1%, hospitalizations, less than 1%, and deaths, less than 1%. Students who are more at risk for contracting the virus are those with asthma, diabetes, congenital heart disease, and obesity, same as in adults. Most of the time, these risk factors are preventable. We can do more for our students and help decrease their risk of any illness by promoting a healthy diet and exercise. More children in the United States, believe it or not, die of heart disease than COVID-19. 2.5 more deaths, children die of suicide each year, 2.5 times more than COVID. 2.5 times more die of drug overdose each year. If we are so data-driven, and these stats are on the CDC website, why are we not focusing more on suicide and drug prevention? Other precautions should be taken care of first before mandating masks. We have not been keeping kids socially distant. Sporting events are packed. We just had a homecoming dance and my child had an amazing time. If anything, we need to implement some basic guidelines first before forcing students and teachers to wear masks. For those students who are at higher risk, I totally get it, totally understand. Wear a mask. Armor yourself if it makes you feel more protected. It should be a choice, and parents know what is best for their children. Let them decide. Do the research. Look things up for yourself. Do not take news headlines or social media posts for granted. Don't. Research. Look into it. We need to be cautious, but we do not need to live in fear. We have been in school for 1 month now. These kids have started the school year under a normal condition, and so far it's been a success. Let's continue down this road cautiously, and with knowledge. A decision to mandate masks should not be based on peer pressure, political influence, or emotional reaction. Cases are low and recovery rates are high. Thank you.
Kristen Severs. She asked me to call her Larry, but
Hi, I'm Kristen Severs and I live in Pleasant Hill and I have 3 kids that have been in Southeast Polk. One's graduated and 2 still in the school. And I am here once again to speak with you with a heart full of gratitude for your time and service and a heart full of empathy for the level of peer pressure you are dealing with for your peer school boards. We teach our children that peer pressure is hard and that when they are in a situation where everyone else is doing something they know could be harmful to themselves or others, it is intimidating to be in the minority. As I mentioned last time, myself and 2 of my children live with hearing loss. Our world is low volume, and when that world and everyone in it are masked, we lose the visual input of lip reading, which is a crucial part of our communication. A side note about hearing loss, you know when you cannot see something, you don't know when you don't hear something. If you don't see the speaker's mouth, you can miss that someone was speaking to you. How many times do you try to speak to someone in a noisy setting while wearing a mask or a quiet setting, and you have to briefly lower your mouth to be understood? This is our life being hearing impaired, and I ask you to please not make that harder for us. There are really 3 options: banning masks, requiring masks, or maybe the third option, the middle ground of a parent and family choice for masks. My family would benefit greatly if masks were banned so we could hear and understand everyone. I am not asking you to ban masks because I understand that that could be harmful for people, and I have great empathy for everyone's unique situations. I am asking you not to require masks because that is also not good for everyone. And I know that you have great empathy for everyone's unique situations. I am simply asking for the third option, that middle ground, and that is the family and parent choice. The dashboard as of yesterday showed 21 people out with COVID. If 21 out of 7,000 are sick, that's a pretty strong indication that our current return to learn plan is effective and that parent and family choice is working. I feel the peer pressure from our fellow school districts, and I know that you do too. It's really hard and it's challenging to be a leader and stand up for what is right, especially when we're in the minority, but it is important too. And the best news is that other districts are helping pave the way. Indianola, Carlisle, Waukee, Norwalk are all leaving the choice in parents and families' hands. We teach our children that peer pressure is real and they can be strong and do what's right. Let's be shining examples of standing up to that peer pressure for our kids. Let's show great leadership in choosing that middle ground and avoiding the extremes of a ban or a mandate. I know that you don't want to make things more difficult for kids with a different journey, yet a one-size-fits-all decision has unintended consequences. Please leave the choice to parents who know their kids, who know the path that they are walking, so that we aren't harming some of the least of these in the name of trying to help. Thank you.
Connie Ray.
Thank you for saying that about the hearing impaired, because I also have a grandson that's hearing impaired, and I honestly didn't think of that, but that was wonderful. Thank you. Connie Wright, live here in Altoona. Thank you for the opportunity tonight to speak before the board. I could address the fact that we already know masks do not work and that there is plenty of data to support the harm that masks, sorry, I apologize. That there's plenty of data to support the harm that mask wearing is doing on our immune system's mental and emotional well-being, but you already know. You know that COVID is almost at 100% survival rate, especially in children under 18. You would know if you bothered to visit schools that the vast majority of both students and staff do not wear masks. You know that even though the survey contained at least one confusing question, that the majority who took the survey do not agree with a mandate. But what you don't know is that my little 6-year-old granddaughter who attends Centennial has been happy this year, smiling, socializing during a real lunch with trays and silverware. What you don't know is that she said today, "But how will I know my friends if I have to wear a mask again?" Do you care? Do you acknowledge that you are duly elected to serve the community and not yourself? That you are in an elected position to be honest, transparent, and trustworthy, and yet I don't always see this. You should be working together for the betterment of the school district and leave the parenting where it belongs. If you believe you should overstep your duties and make a choice for my family, then how can I trust that you will ever listen to myself or the community on any subject or issue? Sorry, my apologies. Any subject or issue. I'm here to ask anyone to give up. I'm not here to ask anyone to give up your rights. You want to wear a mask? Go for it. You think I need to wear a mask? Feel free to wear two. My family should not be discriminated against for the choices we feel are best for us. Just like I don't feel that if you choose to mask up, that you should not be allowed to do so. Now, let me take some quotes from a board member. This is the United States of America, where all of us are free to express our freedoms and our beliefs. If you think you are judge and jury on patriotism and what it is, then you have lost all meaning as to what this country stands for and what freedom actually means. You're right, you're not judge and jury, and you should never have the power to take away my freedoms. To the community, I'll express how important it is to get out and vote. We can see what isn't working, so it's time for a change. It's time to put those into this position who will focus on what they should be focusing on, like why a high school history class is now teaching children how to make cocaine, instead of trying to co-parent with us. Get out November 2nd and let our voices be heard. Thank you.
Just so everybody knows that all those have been within 3 minutes, about 2:45. So just giving you an idea. Guys are doing good. Sarah Ashby, I think she's in the hall. Is she? Okay.
Sorry, I'm kind of nervous trying to find my. Sorry, I'm very nervous and trying to find, there it is. Okay. Hi, my name is Sarah Ashby. I'm a K through 12 graduate from Southeast Polk with family still in, I'm from Altoona, and I still have family in Altoona as well. I attended college at Iowa State University, majoring in political science, where I studied constitutional law. There's been a lot of talk about individual rights and freedoms from those who oppose mask mandates, and I'd like to address some of the misconceptions that they might have. When our founding fathers wrote the Constitution, they put life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in that order for a reason. because an autonomous person's right to safely live always outweighs someone else's right to do whatever they want in public. We've seen this shown time and again with laws ranging from public intoxication to texting while driving, to the fact that you can't walk around your neighborhood naked without getting put on the sex offender registry. Over 100 years ago, in Jacobson v. Massachusetts, the US Supreme Court ruled with a 7-2 majority that mandatory vaccinations were not unconstitutional and that individual freedoms may be limited to protect the general public during health emergencies, such as epidemics and pandemics. They stated that, and I quote, "In every well-ordered society charged with the duty of conserving the safety of its members, the rights of the individuals in respect of their liberties may at times, under the pressure of great dangers, be subjected to such restraint, to be enforced by reasonable regulations as the safety of the general public may demand." They also said, and I quote, "Real liberty," sorry, I'm really nervous. "Real liberty for all cannot exist under the operation of a principle which recognizes the right of each individual person to use their own liberty, whether in respect to their person or property, regardless of the injury that may be done to others." This ruling has been upheld multiple times in the Supreme Court, with the most recent case being just last year in regards to COVID-19, which can and should be applied to mask mandates as well. And to those who say, well, if you're so worried, just have your kid wear a mask. Sorry, this was under 3 minutes.
Keep going, keep going.
I'm almost done.
We got about 15 seconds.
Okay. None of us live in a personal vacuum. Our actions and airborne particles affect others around us. You chose to send your kids to public school, and that choice comes with some conditions. Southeast Polk is a public entity.
Go ahead and finish your
One sentence.
sentence. Yeah.
Is a public entity. Therefore, you have the legal obligation to protect the lives of all students and staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle Evans.
My speech. Hi, I'm Danielle Evans. I live in Altoona and I have 2 children in the Southeast Polk Community School District. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. It really means a lot. I wouldn't want your position whatsoever. First, I'd like to point out some discrepancies that I'm seeing daily within our community. I know several parents that sent you emails in the last week or 2 to request that a mask mandate be put in place to protect their younger children who haven't been vaccinated. But yet these same people go to every single football game, home and away, without wearing masks. These same people send their children to and from activities every evening without masks. These same people last year went to the Dome to cheer on our football team. They continue to live their life normally without wearing masks whatsoever when public or social gatherings. So these same people submitting your survey that you sent out with responses that they support the mask mandate don't even follow what they're asking you to follow. One thing I'd like to continue to remind everyone is that nobody has taken anybody's rights away from wearing a mask, nor has anyone taken their rights to keep their children home if they want to keep their children safe. I think we can all agree that we have always taught our children how to stay healthy by washing your hands frequently, by not sharing drinks with others, cover your mouth when you sneeze and cough, all common sense things that as long as our children, that we're reminding our children of this, I feel like we can confidently say that our children are staying safe in school. Parents also need to be held accountable as well. If your child is sick with a fever, keep them home. My son was sick almost an entire week, just 2 weeks ago. He tested negative for COVID, but was running a fever off and on, and I kept him home. Simple as that. Why are we allowing contact sports to go on, wrestling, football? None of them are out there wearing a mask or in games. We're simply just punishing our children because you're all so scared of being sued. That's how I feel. And And honestly, it just really saddens me for our community. It just saddens me to see this happen again. Watch my son have to go through, he didn't finish kindergarten, started first grade without finishing kindergarten. Thankfully, he excelled last year. Sorry, I don't want to cry, but it's just been really difficult the last couple of years, I feel like. And before I end, I just want a quick overview of current numbers. Everybody's already said this. Our positive cases were a total of 21. That's 6 students, total students at 4 Mile, 6 total at Spring Creek, and a total of 9 at the high school. I'm curious as to know what our numbers were last year at this time when we were in the hybrid model and we were wearing masks full time. What were our numbers? I don't know because I can't go back and look. So I strongly encourage each of you to really consider your decision on this matter before making such a drastic change, and to remember how the community came out strong last Thursday at the homecoming parade and the football game. We all sat near each other. We were practically sitting on each other's laps at the football game because our stadium doesn't support the amount of people that were in attendance. But again, not a single person was wearing a mask, and it was amazing. So thank you.
Kaylin Pollock. Did I say that right? Callan, I'm sorry. Yep.
I'm Callan from
Should be able to pull that. There you go.
I'm Callan from 3rd grade,
What school, 3rd grade?
Southeast Polk.
Time this week, I thought it keeps on me.
Clay.
Which school?
Clay.
Elementary. Okay, thank you.
Can we kind of do a joint group? You said a group. Like that.
Your group.
Okay.
Why you shouldn't wear a mask. When I am running in PE, it will be hard for me to breathe. When kids are asking a question, the teacher may not hear them. I do not like to wear a mask. Kids might play or fidget with their mask. The students might not understand the teachers when they give directions because they can't hear them. I don't like the way some masks feel on me.
Hi, I'm Jana Pollock. I have 3 kiddos in the Southeast Polk District, 2 at Clay and 1 at 6th grade Spring Creek. Unlike my son, I am not prepared with a document. He actually wrote this while he was at school today during his free writing time, which I am so proud of him because he's learning to give his voice about how he feels, which what better than the student that has to endure this mask if it gets approved. And I'm just more nervous than him, I think. My heart rate is skyrocketing. Anyway, I just kind of want to come as his mom. Callan, this isn't something we really even talked to anyone, so you put on a public forum is pretty big, but my son has been diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome, and the tics are very mild for him, but it's all the other stuff underneath that affects him. And one of that is called sensory processing disorder, which means he's constantly pulling on clothes or wearing socks inside out because he can't stand the way they feel. And we've had many battles at home about clothing and shoes and everything else, and late for school because of it. That is a personal, dealing we have to do with in our household. And mask is just one of those other things that affects his sensory processing disorder. Some of the masks feel okay, some of them don't, that kind of thing. He also has a stutter that sometimes comes out. And for someone who's learning to speak properly, to speak correctly and not stutter, a mask is not going to help that. So my point here about this, about one of my 3 children, is that one size fits all does not work for him. It does not work for 100% of the students. And I shouldn't have to get a medical exemption for a medical device on his face that he doesn't need. The rates for COVID are so extremely low for children that they do not need masks. I know I sent all of you an email this week And I appreciate the couple that responded to me. So I knew you actually read it. So thank you. I don't know who all read it. So you already know a lot of my personal feelings on this. And I tried to be very unbiased. I didn't give you a bunch of facts and figures about the rates because I have a feeling someone else here tonight will give you that. But my family choice is to not mask. And that should be our choice. And as representatives of our school district, I urge you to vote for what your parents are asking you to vote for. You sent out a survey. Please listen to those results. That's the whole point of the survey, is to listen to those results. For my older son, when he was in 5th grade, he got yelled at in PE for having his mask down to take a breath. He had been running back and forth on the court with a mask on, and he just took it down because his face was beet red and he got yelled at for it. That's unacceptable. And I don't want to have to do that again this year. And when I told my kids there's another meeting about masks, the anxiety level in our house just rose. And they're like, we don't want to do this again. Please don't make my children go through this again. And please don't make me to go have to find a religious or medical exemption for my children. I shouldn't have to do that.
Black.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak tonight. My name's Nicole Black and I live in Altoona, Iowa, obviously. Someone said earlier that wearing masks is not unconstitutional. However, I can tell you that it is, and there have been law cases to cite that. For instance, there was an attorney who represented some plaintiffs in a lawsuit in San Diego where they had mandated masks. And the requirement in the lawsuit, it says that the requirement of a plaintiff to wear a facial covering in public when not in his residence restricts his right to travel within the county by forcing him to make a decision between wearing a facial covering, which provides no medical benefit, and in fact, it creates other collateral health risks, or remain a prisoner in his own home. Either one of those choices violates his essential constitutional rights to that plaintiff and to all of the children in our schools. This isn't easy for me talking about anxiety. I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. Sorry. I have one son who's a freshman. He doesn't want to wear masks, you guys. Why are we doing this? Why are we here? If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. Don't force our children to do something they don't want to. This is hard enough. We're in this together. The stats tell you it's less than 1%, you guys. You have a ton of people out here fighting for our children. And I'm asking you, I don't even care about this. I'm asking you, please fight for our kids. Do what is right. I can go on and on about stats and examples from around the country to Norway. They're now treating COVID-19 just like the flu, based on statistics. I can talk about the statistics for influenza for 2019. In the United States in 2019, and this is per the CDC, 39 million to 56 million people were diagnosed with influenza versus 43 million to COVID in 2020. 740,000 hospitalizations for influenza, 62,000 deaths. Why are we not talking about influenza? It's a respiratory illness. It's spread through droplets. The CDC actually recommends naturally acquired immunity, which continues to evolve over time, has antibodies, and it remains detectable for longer than what was actually first anticipated. The CDC recommends that we use our own bodies as a tool to build immunity. Everything is hard enough, you guys, and I'm asking you to please do the right thing for your community, for your parents, for these students. And please vote 100% no mandates. If you want to wear a mask, please wear a mask. And I respect every one of you and every parent here. If we agree, disagree, and especially you, thank you for speaking as a student. You speak for my students as well. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
JC, ready?
Well, I can scrap most of what I was going to talk about. My name is JC Ruddy. I live in Altoona. I want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to thank all you guys for what you do. I've had a little taste of what you guys have to go through. And believe it or not, I'm not that bad of a person. I come here first as a father today. I think the statistics are very clear. I think people have listed off numbers on that. I'm going to go to what Mr. Krabs said when we went through our district vision and mission of learn, lead, and live. I think Southeast Polk is a special place. I've said that, and I'll say that in a lot of questions I'll have. And I think this world and this community and the Polk County school districts are looking for a district to lead. You don't lead by following. You lead by standing up for what's right. Lawsuit, potential lawsuit, or no lawsuit. Lawsuits could happen on either side. You've heard from people on both sides saying that this affects my child. Yes, there's children, unfortunately, that have disabilities and situations where they feel compromised in the situation. I understand that. I've sympathized with them. But then you have situations like that and simple situations with hearing issues. They have rights too, and they have to deal with this as well. Our job is to lead. Your job is to lead. I was talking to one of the board members this Friday that it takes one district to say, no, we won't do this, and others will follow. That's what makes us special. The last thing I'll say is this is, a couple things really quick. I don't know where I'm at, Kevin, but what does your common sense tell you? What does your conscience at this moment tell you? You can't listen to this child and say your conscience says, yeah, let's mask them up. If it does, I'll pray for you, to be honest with you. If we vote yes on this, we're extending the division that is dividing our country and our district right now. You will continue that. Some of you on the board didn't have to deal with what we had to deal with last year. You have grandchildren. Brooklyn, stand up. That's my daughter. That's one of 4. That's my wife over there. We had to fight every morning. I had to deal with teachers telling my daughters to keep their mask over their nose. They didn't want to do that. Guys, it's time. I know you don't want to do it either. It's time to stop this, and it's time for our district, for you to lead. And you don't lead by following Des Moines. You lead by the other ones that are saying, they already said it. We lead by saying no to this. Thank you.
Neil Kyer.
Neil, while you get set up, just a question. Were you citing Forbes v. San Diego? Yes. Is that the mask, the San Diego mask?
Was that the lawsuit that you're asking?
Yes. He can tell us when to do it. He just said if we have questions. Okay. What was the name on it?
We were going to wait until the end, but yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. There wasn't clarity there. So. Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that at the end for time. Go ahead.
All right. My name is Neil Kyer. I'm from Bondurant. I went to Southeast Polk, so this speech is on you. It's not good. Sorry. It's on you guys. Anyway, thanks for the opportunity to give us a chance. What's that? Class of 90.
Oh, nice.
He's before our time. We're off the hook. So
Right. If Miss Aarons was here from my speech class. Anyway, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I have a junior at Southeast Polk High School, and he had mentioned to me that about 5% of the students are wearing masks when you walk down the halls. It's voluntary right now, which I think is great. However, the kids that aren't wearing masks right now, and that's actually showing you the wishes that the kids want. It's voluntary. And if you pay attention to that, you'll realize they don't want the masks. I believe masks should be a choice of the individual. And according to the results of the school survey, the majority of the parents here agree. On June 16th, 2021, a group of parents in Gainesville, Florida that were concerned about potential harms that came from mask mandates sent 6 face masks into a lab to get tested after 1 day of use. The results that they found were 5 face masks contained bacteria, parasites, and fungi, including 3 with dangerous pathogenic and pneumonia-causing bacteria. Here's what they got: pneumonia, tuberculosis, meningitis, food poisoning, diphtheria, Legionnaire's disease, meningitis septis, as well as a handful of things that I could not pronounce. So take a look at football, Saturday, Sunday, Friday night games, which are awesome to not see kids wearing masks there. But you watch those stadiums, thousands and thousands of people, virtually maskless. But in the news, next week after that, you don't see thousands of deaths happening from people not wearing their masks. It's just not happening. To the best of my knowledge, the student death count in Southeast Polk due to COVID-19 is 0. Think about this. Here are some businesses that aren't requiring their employees to wear masks: the White House, Congress, U.S. Postal Service, the Judiciary Branch, the CDC, the FDA, the WHO, Materna, Johnson & Johnson, and Pfizer. I'm kind of seeing a pattern here. I mean, these are the experts, right? So if they don't think it's necessary, why should we? Speaking of Pfizer, the former chief scientist, Michael Yeadon, said this, and I quote, "You don't need masks, they don't work. Forget lockdowns, they never slow transmission, and you don't need to be vaccinated by an inadequately tested and somewhat dangerous gene-based therapy." I understand that some children can't get a COVID-19 vaccine due to their age, but according to the CDC, as we've heard tonight, it's a 99.997 recovery rate. That's almost 100% recovery. And if you want to talk about natural immunity, a study out of Israel right now, which is one of the world's most vaccinated countries, said natural immunity gives you 13 times the natural immunity over a vaccine-induced immunity. 13 times. We don't hear much about that. Another thing that's happening in this country is the leaders of this country set mask mandates for everyone to follow, but we see them breaking them all the time. You know, our own president broke his own executive order mask mandate for federal lands, wearing a mask. President,
Go ahead and finish your thought.
I'm just not done. All right, I'll skip all this.
Get your high point really quick.
The high point is this: the parents of Southeast Polk voted for you guys to make decisions based on facts and based on what we ask of you. And your job is to educate our students, not to play the healthcare provider. Based on your own survey, the parents have shown that they wish to keep the mask wearing policy voluntary. And I feel like we're heading down a slippery slope here, and we're losing our freedoms in our country. And you know what? We're awake now, and there's a lot of us, and we're watching, and we're ready.
All right, I'm gonna apologize ahead of time. Ryan, is it Nepper? Nepper? I was close. Apologize for that. I guess that's one medium, so.
Hello, my name is Ryan Nepper. I live at 2501 4th Street Southwest in Altoona. Feel free to stop by for a cold glass of strawberry lemonade or a cold Busch Light.
Everybody's gonna stop over now.
That's fine. I have a 2nd grader at Willowbrook. I was here last time when statements were shared about the mask mandate. Valid points and concerns were made on both sides of the issue. The safety of our children and community seemed to be the top priority. We can all agree to that. The question was, what is the best course of action? I would propose requiring all students, staff, visitors at Southeast Polk schools to wear a mask at all times going forward as a new district policy permanently. This would ensure safety from all airborne transmittable illnesses such as the flu, common cold, bronchitis, whooping cough, pneumonia, as well as COVID-19 and countless others. This would give everyone peace of mind for the entire duration that for our children attending Southeast Polk. Surprised I didn't see any eye rolls or groans there. I'm obviously, if you didn't pick up on it, being sarcastic. That proposal would be far too distracting, disruptive, and impossible to enforce or take seriously. We all draw a line in the sand. We just draw them in different places. How far and how long are we willing to go? Going on 2 years with a small child that can barely remember what a normal skill looks like at this point, this is my line. Being out and about in the community, I feel many others share this view. Last time it was agreed to send out a survey. The overwhelming majority is not in favor of the mandate. You all know this. I think we can agree that no one is opposed to a voluntary use of masks. A fair concern brought up in the last meeting was children being bullied or picked on for wearing one. This and should be once again parental responsibility. It is not my place, nor would I ever tell others how to parent. I will simply say, keep this in mind with our kids, especially young kids. They're always listening. They're mirroring our actions, our words and opinions. My son likes the Iowa Hawkeyes because grandpa and dad like the Iowa Hawkeyes. Mom and dad talking about politics and political parties, which, let's be real, a lot of this is tied to, reflects on our kids. By voicing our opinions about opposition of a mandate in front of our children may implant a negative idea in their minds about others wearing masks. This simply ties into the bigger problem of bullying in general. As an adult, as parents, set the example that we all are free to have our own differences and beliefs. That is okay. But bullying and treating others that are different from us is not acceptable.
Go ahead and hit your high point if you have one.
Okay. We've already talked about the legal aspects of it. There's going to be lawsuits on either side. Last paragraph, a new model was introduced to the board last time we were here. Mr. Bala and Mr. Panache, I hope I pronounced that. A key point to this was everyone is a leader. So ask yourself, are we going to vote based on what other districts have done because we feel pressured? Or are we going to be leaders, draw our line in the sand and listen to the people of our community and vote no on the mask mandate? Thank you for your time.
All right, and then we have 6 comments that were. Oh, we did, okay. Wanted to save herself for last, huh? Thanks, Amanda. Oh, Amanda Redhead.
My name is Amanda Redhead. I'm here today as the mother of children in the district and as a pediatric nurse. I'm here to ask for a reinstatement of the mask mandate district-wide so that parents in this district will not have to see the suffering that I see as a nurse. We know that COVID numbers in Iowa are high. Data posted Monday by IDPH indicates that 12 children, ages 11 and younger, were hospitalized in Iowa with COVID. These children can't be protected by a vaccine at this time. Last week, it was reported that more than 3,000 children had tested positive for COVID-19, more than a quarter of the state's 12,000 reported cases. We're seeing more infected children than ever. This week, 3 evidence-based studies were reported by the CDC, all providing evidence that masks work in schools. These studies show that schools without in-school mask requirements were 3.5 times more likely to have a COVID-19 outbreak than schools with in-school mask requirements. Sorry, the data is definitive. We have those that'll say it's parental choice. However, we know that masks aren't so much about protecting the person wearing the mask as it is about protecting others from the person, protecting others from the person wearing the mask from a potential virus that that person is maybe carrying. That's why I can ask my daughters to wear masks to school, and they do, but it only offers them a modicum of protection. They need others in the community to care about them enough to wear masks as well. If others do not, we unfortunately need to mandate it. I will also say that we at Southeast Polk are in a culture of not masking, from this very board to administration to staff, all the way down to students. As an example, I went to the junior high orientation and witnessed only 1 staff member masked. Not even the school nurse was masked. If we cannot expect the adults and leaders to model this behavior and protect each other, following current CDC guidelines, I don't understand how we can expect children to look out for others in the community this way. I go to work each day and I care for sick children, some of whom are sick with long-term effects from COVID-19. And I'm here asking for a mask mandate in the hopes that the parents in this district won't have to do the same this year. Thank you for your time.
Since all of you did so well, keep it under the 3 minutes. I'm not taking 3 minutes on each one, but I will try my best to share the passion that everybody has in this. So you want to see what Bondurant does? I graduated from Bondurant, so you talk about just so you don't feel what you're doing.
Right in the front.
He's right there. Yeah. Don't feel so bad. You did actually pretty good. So now you get to witness Bondurant. Okay?
My dad was your counselor, I'll bet you.
Warren? Oh, well.
Now I'm gonna know.
All right. Now I'm embarrassed. All right. This is Tammy Burklebile. Okay, I messed up too. 4176 Southeast 82nd Street in Runnels. After being out in the community the past few weeks at sporting events, both outdoor and indoor, as well as Walmart, Target, multiple restaurants, and the homecoming parade, it is very clear to me that our community is choosing to live without masks. With these observations, as well as the results of the survey, please respect the wishes of the community that voted each of you into office. To mask or not to mask should be left with the parents and their child. For their families concerned with COVID-19, no one is stopping their students from wearing a mask. Please do not restrict our students and bring a mandate back. If it begins, where does it end? Next one, Ellen Bell, 10,458 Southeast Vandalia Drive in Runnels. Dear board members, I fear that putting out a survey has misled our community into believing that masking is something that's up for debate based on popular opinion. Unfortunately, this is not the case. Legally, to comply with the American Disabilities Act, we need to require masks at this time. Failure to do so opens our district up to huge liability. I cannot imagine the district's legal counsel and or liability insurance carrier has not already made this clear to the board. We have children in the district who are protected by the ADA, and by not requiring masks, we're opening ourselves up for a lawsuit. Is it the board's job to protect our district legally and financially, and risk prevention and management in an important part of this? Do I like masks? No. Do I enjoy wearing one? No. This does not trump the fact that legally we need to require them in order to comply with the law. To those who are in favor of parental choice, I would say you are barking up the wrong tree. If you do not like the law, then fight to have the law changed. Don't simply break the law because you disagree with it. Next one is Cheryl. This says 4th Avenue Southeast in Altoona. I talked to an ER nurse and was told there are not enough beds for the sick kids. The amount of sick children is crazy. Really so sad that you as a safe place for the children can't see this. There are other illnesses that are leading to the COVID-19. It's masked. It is a mask for heaven's sake, just to keep them safe and everyone around them. I did talk to a board member, and I'm not sure his stats are up to date as far as the sick kids. I hope you will really think long and hard about wearing a mask, and truly hope none of your children get the nasty virus. Candace Huss, 35 North Hawthorne Drive, Altoona. I'm a mom of an autistic child in Willowbrook Elementary School. He has a sensory issue, and the mask, when they were mandated, caused behavioral disruption. If you mandate tonight, is there a way my son can either be medically exempt or bring back online learning? I will not force my son to wear a mask when he has a sensory issue. Julie Dewar, 1,925 Southeast 82nd Street in Runnels. Good evening, Southeast Polk School Board. I will start by saying thanks for your service and your time volunteering. I want to share a couple of thoughts and a few concerns. Their survey that was sent out last week is not valid representation or a valid sampling of parents and students in the district based upon the numbers of those participating in the survey. Considering student enrollment as well as one parent per child in the district could take the survey, you have less than 1/3 of the parents participating and less than 10% of your student population participating in the survey. Please do not consider the survey as valid data. Additionally, the survey has led families to the district to believe that popular opinion will win. Legally, the district has an obligation to fulfill requirements of the Americans with Disability Act. Should you choose not to require masks, you open the district up for liability lawsuit in which taxpayer dollars will have to pay. As school board members, you also follow code of ethics. If you're coming into a meeting with a prejudice or bias, and social media posts and parents groups are sharing the votes are already been cast, you should recuse yourself from the vote this evening. Your job is to remain open and listen to all data presented. And lastly, please understand that those of us who support mask wearing may very well be not in attendance this evening because we don't want to expose ourselves indoors to people who are not wearing masks or may be unvaccinated. In my eyes, the amount of disrespect and disregard for the difference in opinion, whether that be at the school board meetings or on social media surrounding the issue, is very alarming. It is a sad day when parents in this community cannot model the same Ramsey teaching that our students receive in school. And equally sad that many organizations within the school struggle to get parent involvement. Yet the issue of mask wearing has become so polarized, politicized, and received so much attention that it's distracted time and energy away from more significant educational issues. Politics have no place in school. Thank you.
I think you went over 3 minutes there, just saying.
Well, I had a few minutes for the other.
Oh, okay, carryover time.
Roger Duncan, 909 Brookview Drive. Regarding mask requirements, Sally spoke. Somehow this issue has become politicized and in no way should be related to anything other than health concerns for our students, school staffs, school liability, and communities overall. There are only two solutions available to us: mask mandate and 2 vaccine requirements. Since Sally spoke is not in a position to require vaccine, the only avenue within the control is mandatory mask requirement. As a grandparent of 2 students and a citizen of the community, I implore the Sally Spoke School Board to get off the political agenda and implement a mask mandate.
Is that all of them?
That's it.
No.
So you were thinking Philip Murillo, right?
Yeah.
That's his attorney. It's Ashton Forbes. Yeah, it's Forbes v. City of San Diego. Or county, I'm sorry, County of San Diego. No, I'm looking it up to see what happened with it. I'm looking up to see what happened with it because it looks like it was initially heard, but it looks like it got tossed. It got tossed in March.
For what reason?
Dismissed because there were no grounds. Cynthia Bashant was the judge who tossed it, U.S. State's District Judge. I don't know. I'm just reading the case brief. She's an appointed U.S. judge. I don't know.
This is from ballotpeople.org.
Yep.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to old new business, item 2A. Can I get a motion for return to learn discussion between the board?
Motion for return to learn from the board.
Discussion.
Hmm?
Discussion.
Discussion.
Second.
Start with the survey results.
Sure, yeah. Just as a reminder, and I know some people, we get caught in the moment of, I think it was towards the meeting, at the end of the meeting when we were discussing what the survey was for. The survey obviously for public opinion, we do appreciate that. And maybe I misled because I'm the one that kind of led that discussion as far as pushing it out there. But one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we had with the survey was to make sure if you take the lawsuit out of it, you take Governor Reynolds' decision out of it, what does the public want? So there is a purpose behind it for public opinion. And it's just not the exact thing. This is not what the board's going to look at tonight. We're going to look at all options. So I just wanted to clarify that because I think some people did think that if we put this out, that this was the final, the board should go with this. But there are other things, and we've heard them tonight in the public comments. So I just want to share that. And then since Adam brought it up, as far as, was there something specific you wanted to talk about this or just make sure that everybody's aware of it?
I kind of echo what one of the comments had. I'm kind of disheartened by the lack of participation because approximately we have 11,000 parents in our district. I understand the way that it was limited was 1 per household. That gives us somewhere in the neighborhood of 7,000 parents that could, or something of that nature, that could specifically resolve. And we got 2,500. And even then, the only majority that came out of us in the second question, otherwise no one exceeded 50%. So the data is kind of See, and that's a problem too. So we need more access
There's not a
to
lot of the audience participation with this
Yeah.
point, so I'm gonna remind you of that
Just-
again.
Hey, Luke, yeah, just at this point, obviously, we're gonna discuss kind of up here with.
it. I got you. I got you.
If you have problems with Infinite Campus or something, make sure you contact the district office and they can kind of help you through that, so.
We'll hook you up with Jason or this guy right here who knows way better than we do how to manipulate the keys. But I'm also concerned because not sure what I said there, but okay. I'm concerned because question 1 and question 3 are the same question, presumably, but they have different answers. So it harms the validity of either because they ask the same question but get different results.
Well, again, you can, I guess the board can take this for what it's worth in their decision making.
Sure.
It's not a definite, my gosh, this is what it is. I mean, if you look at the percentages, I mean, this is pretty accurate to an election that we have in our community. So
sure,
you get those people that don't want to participate because whatever reason. So I guess you can just take it for whatever your opinion is on it. The questions again,
talk about high school.
we kind of discussed through the board, and that's kind of how the questions came up. So okay, we can move on. There's going to be a side conversation.
Guys.
Please, so. So I guess I'm trying to answer the question there. The board made the decision on these questions through our conversation, and that's when we narrowed it down. Because it was actually brought up that we should probably have, make sure I get this right, because it's pre-K through 6th,
Mhm.
and then pre-K through 12. Someone thought, well, we should have pre or 7 through 12 as a separate one as well. Now I mean, obviously we could have put that in there. So I mean, there's so many different questions that we could have put in there, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That after our conversations, we narrowed it down to just 3 that could be the simplest questions for people to answer.
So what was the goal of question 3?
What? Question 3 is.
Can you
whether
do me a
should-
favor and scroll down to question 3? So question 3 is the one that kind of throws the kink in the math for me because what it asks is, do you believe that they should be recommended and not required? The problem is that if you disagree with that statement, the converse of the question is that they are required, not recommended. If you don't believe either, you should answer neutrally. But what we see is if you look at question 1, where there's 48% that believe that we shouldn't require them, versus question 3, where all of a sudden it switches and now there's 40, let me pull it up here because I can't read that far. 41.6% that believe that they, if you believe the converse of the question is that they should be required, so you now have 41.6% that believe they should be required, and only 35.8 that believe they should just be recommended. So it invalidates the data is the problem. Like if you're looking at strictly from a statistical point of view, it invalidates the entirety of the parent's question by having that third question. So, and I don't mean to disregard your voices. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm telling you is the results of this tell me that there actually is no yes or no, because it just depends on how we ask you the question.
It was very confusing.
And see, that's,
Okay, so, all right, we're not gonna go back and forth. I've already I've given the directive of how we're gonna do this. So Adam, if you've got questions for the board members, let's talk about it with the board.
Sure.
Let's not address. it
is
to
there
the-
anything that anybody else on the board deems that we can take from this because of the confusing nature of questions 1 versus 3?
I mean, I would say that the idea of the survey was to get a general sentiment from the community. It's not a scientific apparatus. It's not our primary decision-making tool. It's
Sure.
it's an input to give general sentiment. So we can sit here and pick it apart all night long. It's not a perfect tool, but I think it gives us a general idea from students and staff and parents. And then I think we can do what we want with that and how we want to interpret it, because, you know, you could look at these results and you could, whatever side you want to go on, you could take the neutral and say, well, they're with us, you know, and we can make those arguments. But I think This gives us a general picture. It gave people a voice. I think that was the point.
Yeah, I think you could take, if you don't like that question, you can take it off. Again, this is for your kind of guidance, where you want to go with it.
Well, don't think you can take it off because that
No, and you're-
invalidates the questions to begin with. But I mean, I understand if we're just doing it for an information pieces that it doesn't have anything else there, what it tells me is the information itself is tainted. And that's fine. And we
Does the board
can,
have any other questions on the survey?
No, I have a question for Dirk, though.
Okay.
I heard various numbers on the dashboard, and I looked at it just now, whatever the most recent data is, and I counted 81 with COVID. I counted 56 students and 25 staff members. Is that close? And what I did where the stars were, that's less than 6, so I just counted 5. So that's higher than probably what some of the buildings actually are, but that's when I look at that, that's what I count.
It's
So is that-
probably closer to, I would say, 60 overall.
Okay, not 81, but 60 with
Right.
COVID right now in all the buildings. Thank you.
oh, Gary. Hey, Gary, you made it in time.
Yeah, let's get put away by now.
Oh, we're just getting started, man. The party is just started. Pull a chair.
We're waiting for you.
We're swapping recipes. We got it going on.
We're gonna
You
start
wanna-
with roll call.
We've waited just
So
for you.
funny.
Do you want to redo the public comments?
No.
Oh, no, he was listening in the car. Don't worry, he got it.
I've got lots of emails, so I think I've got a sense of it.
So Gary, where we were at, we were just finishing up discussion on the survey. Did you have any comments or anything that you'd like to address with that, or?
On the survey?
Yeah, the survey.
No, other than that, and I assume this was talked about, I got a lot of emails about it. When we decided to do it, or I voted, assented, or I think we just discussed about doing it, but it was the idea, I don't think we had assessed the community in a while, their thoughts. And so I thought it was a good idea, but by doing that, unlike some of the emails that I got, I don't think, it was good to get the data and get some information, because like I say, it'd been a while and a lot of things have changed since then. But by doing that, I don't think it's just as simple as, oh, this is the majority vote, so this is what our decision is. So that was all I was going to say about that. It's still our decision to make,
Were we able to refine the data from staff?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Well, because I was, not to bypass the parent stuff, but looking at the staff data, it's interesting because in the under 6, by a factor of 0.3%, they would prefer a mask mandate. That comes down to about 3 teachers. That's what 0.3% is. Somewhere in the realm of 3 to 4 teachers is the difference between yes and no, at least for K through 6. But if you look at K through 12, it is flipped quite a bit the other way. So I'm wondering if some of our high school teachers, or I'm wondering if teachers that wouldn't be affected by K through 6 maybe have skewed our votes, or skewed our survey, excuse me, or if it's true to what the actual people in that building would want.
President Handy, you're asking a question about how we feel about the survey. I'm glad we did it, because our community needs a way of communicating with us. I struggle with a neutral position because each side could claim neutral, and I wish it was like this or that, which way do you feel? So I really struggle with the neutral. I understand why it's probably an option, because some people don't care and we want everybody to participate in the survey, but it's just hard to read. Both sides are probably claiming the neutral as their side, and that's normal. I'm glad we get emails. Please email us. I read them all. I don't always respond, but I promise you I read them all. And I really recommend you all for coming tonight and standing at that podium and giving us your thoughts. That's by far, we need to hear from you in person, see you face to face. And no matter if we agree or disagree, it's just the way our school district should conduct business. So thank you.
Anything else? You can probably take that down. All right, any other discussion on return to learn at all?
I just would like to say that, I listen to the families. I listen to the young man from Clay, and it hits home hard. I have 3 grandsons in the district. Well, no, excuse me. I have 2 that are old enough to be in the district. One's only 2, so he's not in the district. The 2-year-old goes to a family daycare, and the family daycare had to be shut down for 10 days because of COVID in the daycare. One of my other grandsons goes to 4 Mile, 3rd grade. And it was just a week ago, they have 22 students and 11 of them were absent. So that scares me or concerns me, I guess. I don't like masks either, even though I'm for masking our younger students. I don't like seat belts, but I wear a seatbelt because I think it protects people. And I think, I'm not in favor of either of our secondary schools or middle schools or junior high or high school to mask. I think they can be vaccinated. They can make their choice. I am in favor of masking, at least for maybe a 2-month period, our kids in our 8 elementary schools. I want to put a date out there, October 1st to December 1st, and let us see the data. And because I think we owe it to our families, our teachers, and our students, obviously, to keep them safe. And you guys all make great points. I can't argue with anything that's been said tonight. And I thank you for listening to me, because I listened to you. And I'm really proud of the way our meeting is being held, and that we're listening to each other. That's the main thing.
So we just want to go down the road then?
Yeah, Adam, he spoke quite a bit. But you got more?
Well,
Keep going.
in respect to Adam, that was on the.
I don't deserve any respect. I get it. It's fine. Here's the thing, and I understand the quote goes back to Carlisle's doing something, Waukees doing something, let them be the one that gets in a class action lawsuit. I've gone through this stupid decision a dozen times today, and I can find 9 different places where it basically says that if we don't, we violate the ADA. And that's not just us getting sued, that's us getting our federal funding. Huh?
Right. You guys have been doing so good. Come on.
Kevin?
It's good. Come on. We can be a little respectful. We can disagree. This is.
I'm sure Kevin can give us a number
Like we
on our
just
federal
talked-
funding, but here's the thing, guys. If we don't have funding, we can't employ teachers. If we can't employ teachers, we can't educate your students.
Okay, Adam, I will ask, let's direct the board. Okay, they're listening, but
They're not.
please
in
talk
this
to the board,
discussion.
I understand.
because that's what,
I understand this, but it also goes
I'm
to the
not sure if you
clarification.
do,
as well.
Adam, because this is the kind
I
of third time
absolutely
that
do.
we've asked you to talk to the board. So we don't have communication back and forth.
But here's the thing, this communication furthers what I'm saying and where I'm at.
Okay.
The reason that I feel that we have to abide and stick to what the ruling is because it puts the education of our kids at jeopardy and us being able to provide it. And that's where I'll sit.
Along with how many other districts?
Hmm?
Along with how many other districts? I'm not worried about lawsuits. I'm worried about the kids. No, in my job, if I worried about lawsuits and what I was doing every day, I could not even care for my patients. So that is, there's always a threat of a lawsuit. There's always a threat of whatever. As long as you're doing what's in the best interest of the people you're serving, then all that will take care of itself. So plain and simple. So that's why I don't want to try to interpret law and get into that whole rigmarole. I mean, what we're talking right now is we do not have a problem as a district. Do we have a COVID problem right now? No. Do we have an illness problem? Yes. Why do we have an illness problem? Because we masked these kids, we separated these kids for an entire year.
all consistent. That's not at all
So-
consistent what the medical professionals are saying.
No,
nor is
it's
it
not.
consistent
We're
what
seeing
the
kids
AAP
hospitalized.
is saying,
Hey.
nor is it consistent what the U of I is saying.
We're seeing
Okay.
kids hospitalized over common colds
Sure.
and everything else because they do not have an adequate immune system right now, because they have not
That's
had
all what the data
small primers
shows.
every day. That's the same way a vaccine works. It's a
I
primer.
understand that. but
So
that's
being
not what the
exposed to
data
these
shows.
bacteria every single day is a small primer. That's what keeps your immune system up and healthy.
Mhm.
So the fact that these viruses are overrunning these kids right now is because we've suppressed them for 18 months. And via masks, via everything else. That is an absolute truth. So, and this vaccine, which I vaccinate, I'm for vaccination. It's been great for high-risk populations. Right now, I'm in a difficult time saying, okay, they're talking about approving it for kids. Do kids need this? Because the percentages of kids that get sick and die are this small. Guess what? The risk of the vaccine is there as well. So I'm sitting here tossing it around now going, okay, in these minor groups, what are my talking points for getting these kids vaccinated? Because right now they're not at risk. So my kid has a greater risk of dying on the way to school than she does from getting COVID. And then we have menstrual irregularities, which now the National Institute of Health is launching a big survey on that just to calm people down as far as the talks of infertility and all that. And I'm not worried I am worried about the fact that it causes menstrual irregularities for a month or two. I have a daughter. I have two daughters. So it concerns me greatly. So there's a lot of things that go into play. And guess what? We are not qualified to make those decisions. All we can say right now is we do not have a problem in this district. Okay, our numbers are good. And two, the numbers for kids that get sick is not concerning right now, as far as that goes. Less than, 1.4 per 100,000 kids get hospitalized. Okay, it's gonna happen. It happens with flu, it happens with everything else. So it's not a concern right now as far as treat it as a normal childhood illness. Yes, I would. For these kids, yes. For us, no.
There's a few questions that come out of that. First and foremost, if we're not qualified, who is? Because the most qualified individuals in the country, in the world, the AAP, the CDC, and the WHO, as well as our own local health departments, all agree in a consensus that kids K through 12 should be masked.
Because of fear.
Because of science.
It's because
The most recent data coming out last Friday, the most recent data coming from the CDC specifically shows that in the studies that have been done recently, this school year, show that schools that have mandatory masks across the board universally have half as many infections than those that didn't. And those that have outbreaks, you're 3.5 times less likely to have an outbreak. That's what the CDC says.
In small studies, you have to look at the groups.
But they
So
are.
I read
looking
them all
at
too.
groups.
Read behind the headlines.
That's
and
not even
look what they
headlines.
are.
That's straight to the studies.
Okay.
We're not talking about media. We're talking about studies.
Right.
Tom,
I'm not
yeah.
gonna argue studies with you.
Tom,
I'm gonna say
do
we
you
do
have
not
anything else to, do you have anything else to add or follow up on? It's your time. Just
Me?
yeah, you just,
Yes, our return to learn plan is updated when we have a problem. So we do not have a problem in the district. So there is no reason right now to make a change. If we identify a problem or we see problems, then yes, we can adapt and go as we go. We've talked about that. Mitigation efforts for small groups as needed, as far as it goes, and that's fine. But guess what? Our absentee numbers right now are not driven by COVID. They're driven by all the other illnesses that are the precipitating factors in all of those. So we have small COVID numbers and they're trending down right now. We're going to see waves of COVID. We're going to see waves of all viruses this year. There's going to be little outbreaks here and there, just like there is all over the country. We might have a week where we have 40 kids. We might have a week where we have 2 kids. So that is a normal illness. That is a normal virus. It's going to transmit through this year. So, and if we get to an absentee rate that's high because of any reason, yes, we can talk about mitigation efforts. But to put it on a group or the kids as a whole right now would be completely, what data do we have to look at? What do we have to compare it to? Right now, they're comparing it to last year's numbers. And how stupid is that? So you had every other day school or 50% school, you had 6 foot spacing, you had masks, you had sanitization. I mean, the kids weren't even around each other. So to try to compare last year to this year, dumb, right? Apples to oranges. So I'm seeing that reference.
Well, but Valley
It's in the
hasn't
lawsuit.
changed. The only
No.
difference for Valley for theirs, or I'm sorry, for West Des Moines schools was the removal of
They
masks.
cited
They
it
did
in this
too.
AD lawsuit, which I thought was incredibly stupid, comparing what they did last year to what they did this year.
Yeah, the
And
only
the
difference
increase.
that West Des Moines district
So-
had was masks.
What do masks not do? They do not stop COVID. And that's another thing. Safety with masks is silly. It's a cloth mask. The whole point of masks
I'm
was
not
to
talking
slow the
about them, I'm
spread.
talking about the audience.
No, but the whole point of the mask was to slow the spread, right? That was the
Mhm.
whole thing from the beginning of this, is slow the spread. So when you're talking safety and my kid's gonna die because they're gonna go to school and get COVID, a cloth mask over your face is not gonna protect your kid from death. So I'm not gonna send my kid to school in a cloth mask and think it's gonna stop some virus from killing her. I mean, it's absolutely stupid that we even say it's safety and it's gonna kill my children. A cloth mask over your face is not gonna save your kid. Does it cut down on some transmission? Yes, it does. Right? The big spit particles, it'll slow down. That's it. So a mask is not a tell-all. A mask is not, hey, it's gonna do it. Yeah, businesses mask up. There's some doctors that mask up. Yes. You can curb the big part of the spit-borne stuff, but you can't curb the aerolization, which they said Delta is more transmissible and all that. Yeah, we're gonna see more cases. What are the cases right now? They're not more virulent. So cases in kids, not more dangerous. There's not more hospitalizations and there's not more deaths. You will see more kids with COVID. You're going to see more everybody with COVID this year. We're seeing that. What we're not seeing is any change in the death rate or the hospitalization rate, which is your two determining factors on what we do. So we can't stop COVID. So no matter what we do in here, mask mandate or not, we can't stop COVID. We're still going to have COVID cases. So that's why it's silly right now to talk about it. Guess what? I've talked to enough kids with masks last year that talked about self-harm, that talked about depression. And I don't want to go back to that this year either. I don't know how many conversations I had that end in tears. And I'm worried about these kids. Suicide is a big risk. Self-harm is a big risk. We have not done much of anything as far as mental health and stuff right now. We say we are, but we're not talking about our kids. We had a huge event today, a huge event that our staff and our administration did not do anything to calm our children. Did we put out a message during school day? Did we have teachers talk to the kids and stuff and calm down? No, we had kids
We did
freaking
both of
out,
those
crying.
things. We did both of those things. I'm not saying communication was perfect. My son's teacher talked to him and said,
Right, but not across
everything
the
is
board,
okay.
right? That was not a message across the board. Because I've got multiple emails here whose kids and parents are freaking out, crying throughout the day, crying when they get
There was an
home.
internet disruption in the Des Moines Metro
Right,
that had
but I'm
nothing
saying,
to do with
listen.
the district.
Okay, that's not a point. I'm saying mental health is a big issue right now, and that's a big risk. This just exacerbated it today. We've got kids fighting. We've got problems in school that need to be addressed more so than what COVID does. Things that are much bigger risk.
Social media.
Get
Out
your
of
phones out
control
of the
today.
schools.
It was out of control.
All right.
So-
Agreed on
Let's stick with return to learn.
Yes.
Um,
Well, it's clear where I'm at. As far as I am more worried about our kids and other things that are going on right now than COVID. So COVID is not the main concern we have with our children right now. It's getting them educated, right? And it's protecting their mental health while we do it right now. So that's the two things I am most worried about with our population right now. And a mask is going to do nothing for those kids.
Gary, you got
Oh, boy, didn't time this right, didn't
Yeah.
I? Let's see. I don't even know where to begin. I would say that, I am a lawyer, so I do, I have read Judge Pratt's decision and I happened to be driving in East Village. I'm never in that area. And I saw Judge Pratt walking on the street and I thought, Judge, thanks for all that you did for us. And I'm sure I don't agree with Judge Pratt on most things, but some things I would, and I don't know him, so I've read the decision. And I think and I don't want to make decisions based on potential lawsuits either. But as a board member, we have a fiduciary duty to the organization. So as a lawyer, I can't help it. I've been trained in that, and that's my bailiwick. And so it does concern me, this decision, although we were not a party defendant to it. The similar issues, I think there's some differences, but an individualized inquiry that would be made with respect to our district, but that are different than this, but similar point in that, I guess I do agree, and I said this last time, I do agree with Judge Pratt. One thing that last year, we did what we could remotely, but it is not, the best education is when you're in the classroom. And, that law, the ADA is designed, that's, I guess our whole system is majority rule, which it's not simply that, but it's minority rights. And that we've got portion of our student population that, I don't know what the right word is. I think I said medically fragile last time. I'm not sure that's the right word, but that have issues. And so we do have to look out for them and try to make sure we're not sliding them and giving them, because they have a right for free education. And I've seen some things in the media. I think if we do something with respect to masks, that I don't like this that I heard, and I'm not going to name the districts. Well, if they come to the door and they don't have a mask, pretty much get out of here, and denying them their right for free education. I would hope that if the direction is to go for some kind of a mask, it's some part of the, or all of the organization, that exemptions would be freely given, and that I don't want to turn our teachers into mask police. And we expect too much of them in teaching and learning to turn them into that. I don't think they probably want to do it either. And so that's one thing that concerns me. The other, I mentioned at the last meeting about, well, maybe we could do it even by building, depending, and maybe that's not feasibly workable. I get it. It might be hard to be that nimble, and I don't have the per school, I guess I have the general absences, but I know the last time I looked, here's Runnels out there, and they had 0 teachers with COVID and 0 students. And so if you mask the whole elementary system, they're all wearing masks. And at least at that point in time, nobody in the school building had it, or at least reported it. And I also got emails on that. Well, how do you know? We're not doing blood tests or whatever you do, or up the swab nose thing of people. So, but it's the best data we have. And I trust our nurses are doing a great job doing the best they can to have accurate numbers. And like I said, the last numbers I saw, you'd like to see zeros across the board. Well, that's pretty hard to do with a virus. So it's not zeros across the board, but they looked low to me. And even these absences rates, which I guess you probably already discussed, maybe compared them to last year, they must be higher than last year's. But generally, at least as they're looking now, they're looking pretty low, except for one, I guess, is a little higher, maybe it's almost a 6%. But and these are across the board absences, I trust. So I guess what the Judge Pratt did is he said, well, you've got to make the decision. We're not going to just have this mandate or the other mandate. You can't have a mandate. It's kind of one extreme or the other. And the funding part, I've said, it was probably before you were on the board, Adam, that we were getting federal funding for something. And this is just where I come from. We'll take every bit of funding we can get, but I don't like the idea of federal funding because it always comes with strings. And we've talked about that. And I'm trying to remember, we had something strange even with the school lunch where we weren't charging enough. They made us raise the price for some reason. It was something the federal government required. And I think government governs best that's closest to the people. And I think, I understand the state, and it's true. Most of our funding, I can't remember, part of it's local property taxes, but there is a lot of state. So I think
With strings.
Yeah, and it comes with right? No doubt about it. But at least those strings are coming from Des Moines and not DC. And I don't think there's much of our funding, if you put it in percentages, federal. So that is what it is. This decision is troublesome if we do nothing. And maybe we're doing something by just discussing it. We're not ignoring it. We're trying to take an assessment of what's best for the district at a particular point in time. But it does, even in the end, when the judge says, well, it can be your decision, it does tilt one way for several pages all the way through. So it's a risk, I suppose, like anything risk, you know, that's some of the emails I've got. It's just like, we're dealing with a virus, you know, it's sort of this invisible enemy. And I don't think as a school district, we can sit here and say, well, there'll be no risk, you know, there'll be some risk. And that, you know, we can't eliminate the risk. We can try to mitigate it, but I'm not sure, you know, and everybody, I know I'm gonna offend some people, but you know, I decided early on, Adam, I know you look at those things and bless you for doing that and getting data and looking at it. But in initial, I was all over that stuff. I was looking at it and I got so frustrated because it was popping all over the place. And I get it because everybody was trying to figure it out, but I'm just thinking, okay, you know, this federal agency is called Centers for Disease Control. How are they doing on that so far? So you know what? I didn't put much credence into what they say. Now, maybe I should. And I know they have guidelines, they're not edicts. And we should look at that with everything else. And I said early on when we're dealing with the pandemic, I think we got to look what's going on inside our own system. And looking at these, you know, I'm encouraged. Could it spike up? Yes. Is there risk? Yes. So I don't, the other thing I wanted to say before I kind of wrap up my comments, and I did, out of all the emails, well, I should be careful here because I'm surprised. I mean, a lot of us have been on this board for a long time, and I get, you know, when I was president last year, and I think, you know, I figure, well, it's our board, we can discuss issues and differ, and things did kind of get, you know, we're not perfect. Nobody is. I think we kind of sliced each other. It was some maybe rough elbows, I'll say. And maybe I should have board president done a better job of trying to calm some of that down. But I do think as members of this community, we have to be respectful of each other. And that's on both sides. You know, I get people, I get medical professionals on both sides of this issue. And it's like, I get some saying, well, you know, if you don't have a medical degree, then you shouldn't even be allowed to make any decision on this. I'm thinking, well, you know what? Here I've got, you know, another person with a medical degree, 180 degrees. There's a difference of opinion. I think reasonable minds can differ. I think it's like a lot of things. You can quote science on both sides of this. And, you know, lawyers different in opinions, economists different in opinion, medical professionals different opinions. I think ultimately we have to look at our own data, what's going on in our own buildings, and do what we think's best. And I guess above all, what I'd say, and I only printed out one email, I read them all. And I've actually tried to respond to a few because I know I send all this stuff and I'm amazing. People pour their hearts out into these emails. I mean, they're well written. I'm so proud of, and even kids have. And what I'd say to you, Dr. Hallup, kudos to you, because I've received lots of emails from staff on both sides of the issue. And that tells me our organization is working like it should, that nobody feels like, oh, I can't be saying this to the board member, you know, so that I'm encouraged by. At least that's my perspective of it. Sitting as just one board member, I'm seeing our own staff, differing opinions, and that's good. They feel like they can say it, that there's not some set edict or, you know, playbook that they have to be citing from. The email that I copied, you know, out of all the emails that I've seen, talked about, hey, you know what, whatever you do, please be set a good example. And so I think that's what we have to try to do as the board. And this person didn't even share their opinion, what side they were. They just were encouraging us, you know, people are watching us, set the tone for the community to the best we can. And I think that is very good counsel and advice, and something we should keep probably center as we struggle with this difference of opinion. So that's my comment on the return to learn, I guess.
I just have one comment, and I'll try and keep it at one comment. And that is, last year we kept the schools open with masks on, and we kept kids in school. and I was thankful for that. However, when the governor and the legislature, in the last 10 days of school, after we had already voted and decided to keep masks on till get to the end of the school year, the governor and the legislature decided the last 10 days of school to get rid of the masks. Now, what none of you know about, well, some of you probably do, but what happened is the first day, it started the next morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. All of a sudden, we had a bunch of kids that weren't ready for their summer to begin, but suddenly they had to leave. They had to be done with school on that very day because not one person that voted the night before thought about those kids. Their school year ended that morning. And that's what's not right. So we have to do the right thing for all kids and not based on popular opinion or lawsuit or any of that. We have to educate all of the children. And what happened to those kids last 10 days of school was not right. So that's all I got to say.
Well, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this issue, reading all the emails that came in, and I really appreciate everybody that came here tonight, everybody that submitted a comment that maybe wasn't comfortable or couldn't make it here tonight. I think there are a lot of factors to consider here. And there's a temptation for any of us to turn this into yes or no, black and white thing. And I don't think it is. I mean, I think that there are so many good points brought up tonight with sensory concerns, with other health considerations. I think there's a lot of valid points that were brought up. And I'd say that on kind of like echoing what Gary said on both sides, I think there's some good arguments. What I'm really looking at as I'm evaluating this is a few questions. One, how bad is it? Another question would be, is this getting better or is it getting worse? What impacts would masks have? And we can't ignore the legal implications. I'd love to just throw that out the window, but I think that the fiduciary responsibility was brought up. I think that as part of our rule here. I appreciate everybody that submitted to the survey, and it was good to see kind of where the public is at. I think that has implications on how or if we can implement any kind of a mask mandate. And I think the numbers, you can interpret them how you want. There's definitely a percentage of people that would like to have mask mandates all the way through, some that would slightly more that would like to have, PK through 6. But there is more people, you could say, that submitted to that survey that don't want to deal with the mask mandate. So I think there's a lot of inputs here to consider. Some of the numbers that I'm looking at in terms of how bad it is include some stats that Tom brought up in terms of the hospitalizations and deaths, which if you look at 0 to 17, those are fairly low. And I'm really thankful for that. And I hope that continues. We do know that Delta spreads more easily than previous variants. And right now, Polk County positivity is at 11%. Which I think is higher than any of us would like it to be. And about the last numbers I looked at, this was September 21st, 27% of cases were in that 0 to 17 range. So definitely more kids are getting it, and it's spreading faster than previous variants. I think you could make arguments on the side of hospitalizations and deaths. I know that we've all been reached out to with an individual that has a child that's in the ICU, and that's as far as I'll go with it because I don't want to disclose any health information. But I mean, so there's that to consider as well, that it could be that handful of really vulnerable students that get affected by this. So I look at that in terms of how bad it is. How is it getting worse? If you look at the graphs and charts out there for Iowa, for Polk County, you see this mountain that went up last year and then came back down. And then really through the summer, was very low and looked good. Vaccines out, we're back to normal. And then Delta comes and the mountain goes back up. And we don't know if we're at the top of that. You know, we're hoping that things are slowing a little bit. It's coming back down. We really don't know at this point. And I don't want to try to project where that's going to go. I don't think any of us really can. We can look at other states where, like Florida, for example, where they went up to a peak and they've started to come down considerably. I looked at the UK because that was one of the early places with the Delta. They went up and they came down a little and they kind of go back up a little bit. So I don't know what pattern we're going to follow. Obviously, there's ups and downs and cycles with these that are completely out of our control. But I think that we do need to try to do what we can individually and as a district to do what we can to protect our students. So with all that being said, I mean, we can debate on masks working or not. I found a whole list as I was studying this on masks and how they work. And, I'm not going to sit here and try to debate that with you. I can send links out of all the things that I found. My interpretation is that the best case scenario, if take all of the preferences out of it, everything else, best case scenario, the limited virus, everybody is spaced out, everybody wears a mask, everybody's vaccinated, right? That's the lowest chance that we're going to get. Obviously, that's extreme and not realistic, but that would be best case scenario in terms of limiting that. I heard some comments today about events and things like that. I just want to point out that I looked into that because I like to go to the football games and I like to go to outdoor events. What I found is there's an Oxford study, and this is what CDC bases things off of. Everybody's looking at this, that came out that the proportion of infections was outdoors was less than 10%. And then they've since come back and revised that recently to say that it's actually probably closer to 1%. So I think that with that, any outdoor activities that we have, obviously if kids are wrestling on top of each other and breathing in each other's faces, I don't, that probably doesn't factor in, but most outdoor activities and sports and stuff like that seem to be pretty safe. I mean, if you're talking about almost 1%, down to 1% of potential infection there. So I guess with all of those things, implementation concerns and the legal risks, I'm looking through some of the options that we have that they were posted out on the board docs. Obviously, there's unlimited variations of this that we could take, all the way from doing nothing to masking everybody everywhere forever, right? And I think where you draw the line it is what we need to decide on that. And that was brought up in the public comments. I appreciated that because we could be heavy-handed one way or the other. I would like to find some middle ground to try to thread the needle on the balance between risk when it comes to legal, when it comes to health, but also taking into account some of the other things that were brought up. So, for me, when I look at this, Rick brought up the PK through 6. Those are the age ranges that don't have access to the vaccine right now. I know some of you here and some people may be listening don't believe in the vaccine or don't think that matters. But looking at what CDC says and the other public health authorities, that seems to be our best weapon to fight this and to just get past it and get back to normal. So when I look at 7 through 12, I think there's been adequate time for everyone that wants to get a vaccine to get one, for everyone that wants their child to have a vaccine to get that. So it seems like we're in a pretty good place there. And from the parental choice standpoint, everybody's had the same options. When you get down into the 6 and under, we don't have that option right now today. I know that Pfizer submitted the documentation and they're estimating that's just weeks out from approval. So it's very likely that would be available around the end of October, and that within a reasonable period of time after that kids could be vaccinated that want it, or parents that want their kids vaccinated, I should say. And then we're all in the same boat in terms of protection. So when I look at potential options, that's the one to me that stands out to be, I guess, the most balanced on both sides of this, to say, hey, let's protect those kids for that period of time, that window of time. So let's narrow it down from this mask everybody down to let's mask the ones that don't have the same level of protection. And then also to narrow that time frame down to only when you're indoors during the school day. And also narrowing that down to a window of time that would give people the option to get vaccinated. And if we do all those things, I think that we're limiting that mask requirement quite a bit. Now, there would still always be medical exemptions. There would be religious exemptions. And I don't think, like Gary said, that if we did choose that if a kid shows up, that we need to, like, you know, call in the authorities and take them away. I think that's a terrible idea. I think that, you know, at that point, it would need to be more of let's talk to them, let's understand the reasons, and let's see if we can find a solution to that to get through this time period. So those are my thoughts. I don't really take an extreme perspective on this. I like to look at all the data and try to figure out what makes the most sense. You know, it's a balance of, I think it's a balance of looking at what these organizations, I know some people question their validity, but the CDC, the AAP, the NIH, all these organizations, what are they saying is the best recommendation? And then taking that down to our local level and saying, based on our local conditions, what are we seeing? Does that apply to us? And then also obviously the legal part. So those are all my thoughts. It's kind of a brain dump, but I'll pass it on to you, Mr. President.
Sure, you don't want one more time. I'm still processing. Well, since it is getting late, I'm not gonna kind of sit a lot the last few meetings. But things that, as we're going through here, Chad makes some great points as far as things, trying to find a compromise. When I read the lawsuit, and Gary is our legal expert here, not in that.
I'm not giving any free legal opinions, though.
Put that on him.
When you hear Gary speak, of course, I always call him the word artist or the word,
Whatever.
if you read that, you can read, anybody can interpret it many ways. And so I interpret it ADA specific. And it says that it puts the power back into the board's hands to make that decision with, and I'll use quotations, be watchful of the ADA compliance. So however you want to read into it, you can read into it however you want. You can say that says you have to make a mandate. Well, I don't look at it that way. I look at it that you have to take care of the people that can't really take care of themselves. Now, how do you do that? That's kind of meeting in the middle with Chad. We kind of talked a little bit, you know, yesterday in leadership, and it's like, we can sit here all day and try to figure this piece out. But in the end, it's the man to the left and his team that have to make the final decisions on how everything is implemented. And last year, we kind of made a mockery of the whole school system and decision-making by trying to sit up here and debate what they should do. Our decision is whether we do a mask mandate or not, and how does it apply to this law? So my opinion is we have to protect the ADA requirements, but that doesn't mean we have to mask everything. So trying to figure out that way of meeting in that middle so we can make the ones that don't want masked happy, and then the ones that want to be masked happy as well. Again, as I've mentioned before with Mr. Horton, in negotiations, usually if you make both sides happy, you've done pretty good. And that's what I'd like to do. Now, how do we do that? I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily our job. We have to give some direction to the staff so they can figure that piece out. My concerns are when we talk about indoor only is been mentioned before, lunches. What are we going to do for lunches? again, we're changing the, way the system works, because by our decisions, again, if we mask everybody, you go into a lunchroom, you don't have to wear a mask. Holiday concerts, holiday event, things that are not time for a classroom. I've heard we have to allow those that go to a class the opportunity to have the education. So that's when we would mask. Okay, well, what about when they come back in at the nighttime and then they're up there singing, having their, it's been a while since I've got a kindergartner now, so I get to relive that. So now I get to, go back and see how that stuff's done, but I haven't been to a concert for a while to see exactly what's all going on there. But I assume it's still the same way, where they're sitting up there and they're singing and they're spitting and whatever, because you just can't do that. Now, are they gonna be required to wear a mask? That's one of the concerns I've got. Conferences, are we gonna stay online? Are we gonna be meeting back in person? Those things. Chad and I disagree a little bit on the outdoor versus indoor, which is fine. But I thought about this more today too. This is how my mind works. I'm not the technology guy. I'm just kind of like, all right, if you take a dandelion, one of the white ones, Lori knows where I'm going with this. She knows my mind. You take that dandelion inside, the white ones now, remember, the ones that are really fine, and you blow that inside, is it going to go as far? No. If you do that on the outside and you got a light breeze, that dandelion's going to go. No different than your spit. So we have the disagreement on what happens out at recess, what happens at football games, what happens just in general once you're outside the doors. Our trend is going down. And I didn't bring my exact numbers, but I think the last board meeting, the regular board meeting, we were somewhere around 100-ish, 115 is kind of what I wrote down. What I do remember is from last Friday. I think today we were down 20 from last Friday, but I don't want to quote that. So what I want to make sure that I can state fact is we were down 38 students on the COVID chart on our dashboard. And I think, and then the trend is still going down as today's stats. And again, I've been proved wrong before, so I'm sure if those numbers are wrong, someone can at least tell me. I feel like when we listen to the CDC, we listen to the state of Iowa, we listen to Polk County, all those medical people, I think that's important. I do agree with that. And I am not looking for an applause on this one, but I think it should be, when we talk about science, we talk about following medical advice, we should really leave that up to the parent, the student, and their doctor, not us. I'm not sitting here saying don't wear a mask because you just don't want to wear a mask. But medically speaking, scientifically speaking, that's between a family and their doctor. But I feel we've been moving the goalposts, and this is not my line. This is somebody that brought this to my attention. When you look at what the CDC and all the experts have done to us, is they promised us 2-week curve, let's get over it, and then we'll be in the clear. And then next thing you know, we're not really in the clear yet. We've got to do this. And so that goalpost keeps moving down, and and we're never going to be able to get through those goalposts. And now we're saying different variant comes to play, and now it comes and attacks the kids. And then, again, I'm not numbers. I have to keep relying on Tom and Chad. Chad sent me a bunch of stuff yesterday. Anyway, give me the numbers, Chad, because I'm not good at that. I'm from Bondurant. Got to throw some laughter in here, and I don't mean to pick on Bondurant because they're probably listening to me and they're probably like, terrible.
Little brothers.
But you got to build Southeast Polk up because that's just the way it is. But anyway, I'm afraid that goalpost is going to continue moving on. And to Lori's point, I agree with you 100%. We did put some people in some, decision making for their families that weren't ready to do that 3-4 weeks out of
10 days.
10 days outside of the school. However, I don't know if the board would have been ready to make that decision on our own.
We voted
And, well, we voted to do masks.
the last 10 days of school.
I know, I'm getting,
Okay.
I got a point here somewhere. I don't know if the board would have been ready, if it wasn't 2 weeks out, we could have probably lived with that. But now when school started, we say we're, okay, everybody was on board, as far as I know, that we're coming back with no masks. Now, some people are gonna beat me up later for this, but not one of us on the board thought about, should we be wearing masks at that time? Because COVID was still out there, the new variant was there. It was only at the time that the judge changed the legislation and put the temporary restraining order on it, we said, now we gotta wear a mask. When we could have probably, and I know some will argue with me on this, if we thought it was that important to wear a mask at that time, we could have probably sued the state or made some kind of a argument to the governor and legal wise, that we thought for Southeast Polk students, we needed to protect them. But we didn't. We waited until the judge's order, which I didn't even expect to come in. I was kind of like, oh, we got the judge's order out here, great. Something else that's gonna push that goalpost down the line. So where I'm going with this is, we say, and I'm with Chad on this, I think if that's what the board decides to do is mask, if that's what the board say, and I say we as a board, because I am on the board, so I have to say we, but if that's what the board chooses to do is mask up, I'm afraid that even if we put a date on it, the ADA piece of it comes back into play, because once you have the vaccine available to those 12 and under, what's going to come out and say now that those children that fall into that ADA guidelines, they may not be able to take the vaccine. So you're going to have, we're still going to be put into that goalpost scenario where it's pushed down a little bit lighter, because we're trying to take care of those kids that can't take care of themselves. And I get that. But if the vaccine comes out and then those families say, well, my son or daughter, this is the condition they have, they can't have the vaccine because they're medically fragile, or whatever the proper term is for that. Are we still in a situation that they're going to say, you have to do something for those children? Are we going to be masked back up because of that group? So I don't want to get our hopes up because we sit here and say, well, we'll put a timetable on it, which I agree. I mean, if that's what we're going to do, I say 45 days after the vaccine's made available, everybody has an opportunity to do it. Okay, fine. Then that time comes, if you've got the vaccine, great. If you didn't get the vaccine, great too. We're not going to be the vaccine police, I'll tell you that, in my opinion. But that's what I mean by moving the goalpost, is there just seems to be something that keeps moving on down the field, and we're never going to be able to get there. So I'm not in favor of wearing masks. I'm one of those, I obviously believe in challenging the law a little bit. That may sound funny, but that's
coming from a police officer. Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Well, it comes from, I love government. I have that where I think, the legislature is there for a reason. And if you just sit there and you take everything that is given to you, then you might as well just sit down and, go home, pack your lunch and go home, because you have to challenge something. So am I opposed to these families going up and suing the school districts for what they believe is their right? Absolutely not. I'm not surprised by that, and I encourage that, but I also think that's the other thing, we're going to have some lawsuits on the other side. So I do agree that the ADA side is going to be probably the side that's going to win out. But how can we as the board come to that happy understanding so we don't have any lawsuits and we still follow the ADA guidelines that Judge Pratt has sent out temporarily? Because and I don't want to make this all about one thing or the other, but we can hide behind the lawsuit all day long, but it could get reversed at any moment. They've got an extension on until what, the 11th?
October 11th. when they
October
have a
11th.
Hearing.
And then we're gonna have an appeal from the Republican side, and this is where the political piece comes in, which just sucks. Pardon my French, but that's where the political piece comes in. So we're gonna be back at this again, and it could be, so we can set a deadline of saying 45 days or 60 days after this, but then if that appeal comes in, and I've heard both sides, and we've got a couple of attorneys in the house, not to debate this, but we can talk to me later about it. But where does it go from there? Does it hold still? Does it stay with the judge's order? Does it go back to the government and the legislature? That piece I don't know. So that's what I'm gonna say. And I kind of did this to go down the line, not so we wouldn't have a debate, because I agree with Gary. That email stuck out to me pretty heavy on the heart to say, you control the demeanor of what goes on. And so they gave me a new gavel a few weeks ago. So in all respect, I do appreciate the back and forth. It's just in the meetings, we're not gonna accomplish anything going back and forth. And so when Gary reminded me of that in there, it's like, that is a big piece. So whatever happens here tonight, I hope we can, it's temporary. We know there's gonna be changes. I'm not looking for this. I kind of envy Gary. I think he's the only one.
Yeah, that's good timing for once for me.
He's done his time, on the board, and we appreciate that. And it's one thing we are gonna miss about his experience and knowledge of these things on the board. So what I would like to do, and not to get into debate, but if there are things that I said that people wanna trash or beat up, knock yourself out.
I have my hand
Except
up.
Lori.
I have my hand up. One question, we didn't implement the masks this year because the governor made it illegal. So just to bring out that point, that's why we didn't mandate masks.
Well, I guess my point was,
I know.
we could have been in the lawsuit. We could have
I got
said,
your point. I just wanted to reiterate that the actual reason, we didn't even think about suing, but we just took the law as it was. Question for Dirk. Vaccinations, medically fragile students that we have. Do you know, have you heard of any students? And I don't know that you'll know the answer to this. Have you heard of any that are not able to get vaccinated that could be old enough, above 12? Staff or students, not just students.
Sure. My answer would be no, but I just haven't had that
Right,
conversation.
I know it's not,
I can talk to our nurses and get an answer for the board and send that to everybody.
I'm just asking because if we make it 45 days after vaccination, do we still have the same problem that we're still putting students or staff at risk that can't get vaccinated? So that's one thing that would be good to know. That's it. See, I wasn't that bad.
Who's our ADA expert? Would that be Charlie or?
Charlie, yeah.
Okay. Because if we can find workarounds that put us in compliance with the ADA, that changes my calculus.
So what accommodations can we make?
Well, here's something that, I remember reading, I think I mentioned this last time, Pratt saying here in the decision, we talked about, the benefit of the in-person education. He says, some schools are not offering a virtual learning option. So I'm thinking, well, yeah, the defendants in the suit, yeah, they're sad shape. They don't have that. But then he says, other schools offer virtual, and I'm thinking, well, we're good. We've got virtual learning.
Yeah.
Then he says other schools offer a virtual learning option consisting of pre-recorded videos that don't allow for interaction between the students and their teachers. So, and I asked, apparently we're using this, and I think a lot of schools use it, this program, and that's what we're offering, their video, their online things that they access.
Yep.
And so this is where you get creative, but I don't know if there's a way somehow to amp up the let's see, interaction between students and their teachers in some way. I don't know. I'm just positing that, but that would be a way for if somebody comes, this is the world I live in, if somebody comes and says, well, you're not doing enough for these kids, you're making them so it's not safe for them to be at school, given their condition. You say, oh, well, yeah, that's what Pratt said, but here's what we're doing. We do have interaction with the teacher. I don't know.
Can we legally do that? Because I know we've been trying to do that, but the state only lets like 3 districts.
Well, I'm going to say, I'm not offering any legal, this is just the board member talking, because I don't do ed law and we rely upon our counsel for that. So I don't know the ins and outs of that, but to the extent we're able to differentiate ourselves with these facts of these schools, yes, that would help our position if we would get challenged at some point by someone.
I think we would agree that doing nothing in the face of this, so all the other calculus separate, doing nothing is not an option because of this. It's what can we do to satisfy this so that we can then look at the mask mandate piece separately. So that's why I'm curious what alternatives we can get that would satisfy the ADA that allow us to differentiate our calculus.
So can we identify the number of students that we have?
Sure.
That need accommodations, and then see what kind of reasonable accommodations we can make that would not impact masking 7,000 kids or 3,000 kids for,
yeah.
Yeah, and just from, I posed this to Rick yesterday, and this, I think this is the hard part, and that's why he said they're the ones that have to figure this out, but depending on if the way Judge Pratt wrote that was the 504s, the IEPs, and medically fragile, which at first I said, I don't get why he did it. And they both look at me like, we know why he did it. It's to add that on there. So it's about, what's the number with everybody in there? Did we guess?
I can't tell you exactly, but I would say we're pushing into 30-40%.
Is that right? That's significant.
Yeah.
30-40%.
So if you're talking
claim that.
pre-K through 6, that's probably what, 1,000 kids that fall in that?
A little bit less than that.
A little bit less. I mean, it's hard to figure out, like, logistically, how would you, how would you do that when they're going to be everywhere throughout those grade levels and classes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I get it, by building. I think I got one snotty email about that, well, how could you do it by room? I think you could do it by building, but yeah, I don't mean to imply last time that maybe you could do it by room, but.
One of the options here, not to butt in, that we had talked about was whether there's a way that we could tie our decision to some data within our district. And absentee percentage is probably the most obvious. I mean, we could look at COVID numbers, but those are all self-reported. And so we don't have a direct line in to know if somebody went home because of COVID or not. We're relying on them to go get tested and to report back. And so I think those numbers they're not going to be perfect. Whereas we know who was supposed to be at school and who wasn't. And if it's based on illness, just like, Tom brought up how we control other illnesses, there's an absentee percentage for illness within the school where the Iowa Department of Public Health comes in and says, hey, what's going on, and try to work with us to figure out, do we need to make a change? So, I mean, that's another alternative to say, if we don't do masks throughout PK through 12 or even PK through 6, do we know which buildings maybe are having trouble from an absentee percentage where there's more spread, and can we target those areas? I think that the challenge would be, one, for the 7 of us or 4 of the 7 of us to agree on what those levels should be. I think that would be hard to define. And I think the other part is, can we tie that back to, and this may be for the ADA piece, Gary, you can correct me if this is going down the wrong line. But, you know, can we tie numbers to something, some other source other than us making stuff up? Like, can we look at the status of our area from the CDC as a factor and other things? We kind of did that last year. We talked about the matrix and we talked about where are we at, what color are we in? So, I mean, that's another way to look at this. I don't think anyone wants to have everybody have to wear a mask. I think that's you know, that the challenges have been brought up and the issues there. But I do also think we all want to protect our kids, and especially those that are most vulnerable, and we want to protect our district legally. So anyway, those are just some thoughts, and like, are there ways that we can balance this out so that we can protect those that need it and also protect our district and not be heavy-handed with how we implement these procedures?
So in the effort of like data-driven decisions, do we have a problem with absentee rates trending right now? No. Do we have a problem with COVID trending rates right now? No. So I'm thinking like, if we're making a data-driven decision, which we talk about a lot, so why are we talking about changing our return to learn when there's not like a known problem or known issue that we have right now? And then second on that, if we want to add a mitigation effort for period, which is your layered mitigation efforts, like I said, when I wasn't here, but why are we not talking about ventilation? So like I said, it's non-arguable. It's one that's not a hot point. It's no one that does not bother students as far as all of the issues that we've talked about with our families and our kids and stuff. It is the most expensive, but we have money as far as for COVID related. So that's something, like I said, I presented that last year and we blew it off and ignored it. But now it's like, if we had that built-in mitigation effort, we may not even have that conversation right now. So, I mean, that would be the one thing I would push for, is at least obtrusive. It doesn't impact our kids as far as direct face-to-face learning. You know, I mean, it's strictly a financial obligation as far as that goes, but that's one that pays off with every illness year after year after year. So that would be the one thing I think, if we were to be serious about layering mitigation, that would be the first thing I would attack, and I would attack that as hard and as fast as possible as far as getting that layered mitigation effort in there. And then we wouldn't even be having this conversation about masks and stuff right now. And that takes care of our lunch periods, Brett. That takes care of our high density areas. You know what I mean? That's the one thing that we have not addressed that I think that we need to address.
I don't disagree with you. I think it's a good idea to implement increased ventilation. I've agreed with you every time you brought it up. Here's the issue. Does that meet the requirements set forward by the ADA? Because if it doesn't, it's extra money spent for nothing.
But they don't have a mask requirement.
But that's it. The reason I don't disagree with you with the trends and numbers, and you and I have had this conversation, that outside of the legal calculus, I favor a spot modeling, looking at the schools in the classroom. We've talked about that. But if we do something and it doesn't meet what Judge Pratt's ruling requires, we still get all the impacts that come with that. We've just spent more money. And I agree with you. It's still probably a good idea long-term for other illnesses and everything else. But I don't think I want to make sure that would solve our problem as far as being ADA compliant before just assuming that it does.
Right, but a mask is not ADA compliant. It does not meet the criteria either. You know what I mean? That's not anything that's set forth in any medical journal anywhere. It's saying that a mask is ADA compliant or anything right now.
No, but that's what the ruling would dictate. Like he talks about
He's
specific.
saying safety and layered mitigation.
Well, but he specifically talks about the way that they intend to implement it is via a universal mask mandate.
Right, which would never go over for the United States as a whole, as far as schools, right? And that's what we're talking about.
No, but here's the thing. It'd be nice if we were in a different state that didn't have this and we could make calculus differently, but we're not. This is the table we sit at. This is the circumstances we have, and we have to deal with the judge that we have. We don't have the ability to look at what would happen in, say, Tennessee or something of that nature. It's a different calculus. Like I said, if we could figure out that we could get the input from our ADA expert, it's Charlie, he's not here tonight. And he could have conversations with other experts of the ADA and say, yep, that's recognized as a way to additionally layer mitigation that would meet ADA requirements, then it's a conversation we're having. I absolutely agree. But I want to know that before we pin our hopes on it and then get slapped anyways.
Yeah, but we're not going to have any kind of definitive answer. The whole thing is it's a good faith layered mitigation effort, one that has studies that back it up. That's all we need.
No.
Like, again, you're going in the good, best interest of the children's and you're preserving your face-to-face education. So it's dual fold where a mask is not. See what I'm saying?
How so?
So you're losing some of your face-to-face. We've talked about the teachers as far as,
Oh, go ahead, finish your.
oh, just as far as like the mouth reading and all that kind of stuff, as far as, right? Word
Oh, yeah.
formation, all that kind of stuff. So that is a barrier. So that inhibits some, right? And discriminates against some kids. And
I
ventilation
imagine,
does not discriminate against anybody.
I imagine.
So we
we'll
preserve
have-
all of our academic integrity while also layering on mitigation.
I
Again,
imagine-
win-win, period. And there's no argument as far as that goes. And there's no way to know until
Jesus Christ.
later.
I would imagine that we're gonna have to make some accommodations for the teachers, specifically for children like Mrs. Severs, who need to have the ability to read their teacher's lips, so that they'd be using face shields opposed to masks. The similar accommodations we made last year. So I imagine we have to do that anyways. Under what Pratt lays forward in his ruling. So,
Yeah, let's not get too deep in the weeds. Just keep in mind that it's the administration that has to make these up. We just probably need to. So Tom, you're, I guess, back to your point, you think more ventilation.
Well, it's an easy layered mitigation effort. Not easy, expensive.
I can't remember what.
But yeah, a layered mitigation effort that would impact everything we're talking about without having to impact as far as any kind of adverse effects on the kids whatsoever.
So I can't remember the answer. I know we had some ventilation stuff done.
Yeah, to be clear, that, I mean, our HVAC in all of our buildings and the ventilation has been improved
That's
over
what
the
I
last
thought.
year due to that, both the filtration and the amount and quality of outdoor it's brought in. What you're talking about is more of air purifier type things, right?
Right, the air purifier and the air exchanger as well. So yeah, it's just like the whole fresh air thing.
Mhm.
Right. It's all about dilution. So
what, you looked into this more than any of us. What kind of costs are we talking about?
there's schools that implemented that already. Schools at Ankeny, and there's some others that did it as well. I
And
think
they
it
were
was
named in the suit though, weren't they?
Ankeny was.
4,000 to 6,000.
So it didn't work.
Maybe they didn't argue it. I don't know.
As far as it is, right. So
So anything else, I guess, importance of the return to learn as far as what we need to discuss before we're.
Transportation, don't we have to,
I think that's separate, isn't it?
that's,
well, that's kind of, they put it into each one.
Did that?
Yeah, we might as well bring it up where we're.
Just like fix them in language for out of law. I mean,
that
I thought it
just,
was a separate
does
thing.
that just go into effect or we need to vote?
It technically, since it is the law now, you don't have to vote on
Okay.
it. It just would become part of it. If you'd like to put it in any language that you put in there, that's fine. It's up to the board.
When will that start?
You know, I suggest you give them a couple days, so it's not one of those things that has to be such a quick turnaround. So Thursday or Friday, but again, that's,
So just.
Or next week,
That'd be, well, yeah.
could be Monday.
Yeah.
if the board decided
that we start mask on all buses, public transportation?
Just to be clear, because the governor in their response to this did not contest, because we bounced off here, so I don't think anyone really knows where we're at. Because they did not contest that the mask ban does not stop the CDC's transportation order, we're required by federal law to actually require masks on buses.
Correct.
That's what we're discussing, yeah? Okay. So we don't even get to vote on that, it just is.
Correct. So
So that, I guess, yeah, that's a good point.
we're okay with starting Monday,
I'd be okay with Monday.
everybody?
Sure.
You okay with
Does that
Monday?
give you enough time, Dirk?
Yes.
Do you want me to just throw one out here on these opportunities?
No, I'd rather move that we have no change in the return to learn math policy, that they're recommended but not required.
I think we throw it to the district, because the district is the one that has to enforce this, as you said, Brett. We throw it to them to be compliant with the ADA, so that puts it on Charlie to research what that means. And then if we have to institute a mask mandate, because that's what he finds that means, then we have to come back and vote again, or we put the power in their hands to institute what's required by the ADA. Sure.
Sure.
If you're comfortable, absolutely. I just didn't want to put you on the spot, Dylan.
So throughout all of COVID-19, there's been a lot of conversations and negotiations in regards to students with special needs and how we provide for their specially designed instruction. And that includes both sides of the equations on how we provide that support due to their health and some of their sensory needs, et cetera. So I do know that Mr. Taylor has been working with our Heartland cohorts in regards to when these things come up. And he does have conversations with the AEA in regards to what those mitigation efforts might look like. Given the nature of the individualized nature of an IEP, it's on a case by case and a student by student basis. However, and not the authority here, but just sharing the conversations that Mr. Taylor and I have had, typically with an ADA requirement, we will collaborate and have those conversations and then refer it to our legal guidance to make sure that we are within the legal guidelines of ADA.
So I think with that, I think we need, yeah, we definitely need to make a decision as far as something, so.
I did make a motion.
Present it as a motion then.
So I'd make a motion that we have no change to our return to learn mask policy. Masks are recommended but not required. So and then we just omit the language regarding the Iowa law right now until that issue is resolved.
Do you have a second? All right, not hearing a second. Motion does not go forward. So. we have Anything else?
I make a motion that we require masks for students, staff, and visitors indoors, PK through 12th grade during the school day.
All right, come on, you guys been doing pretty good. Do I have a second on that? Try to give as much time as I get first. All right, not having a second on that one. That motion.
Okay, I make
There's
a
the two
motion.
extremes.
I make a
Too hot,
motion.
Too cold.
Masks for students, staff, and visitors indoors, PK through 6th grade. Masks worn indoors and during the school day.
I'm not sure it does.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
Can I add an amendment to that, or do we have to vote on it first?
We'd have to vote on that and then we come back unless the person that made the motion wanted to listen.
Yeah, I'll listen to him.
Okay, I'd like to put a time frame on that to 60 days after vaccine availability for that age group.
Yeah, I think that's a good amendment.
Okay, you made the
Okay, so I'll do my motion. So masks for students, staff, and visitors indoors, PK through 6, masks worn indoors and during the school day. And once the vaccination is allowed for, do I say PK or do I say kindergarten? 5-year-olds, 5 to 11-year-olds, 60 days after vaccinations are allowed for elementary age students.
It's a new motion, so she needs another second.
I'll second that.
motion of a second. Karen,
Nave,
No.
Slings,
Yes.
Crowell,
No.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
no,
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
No. What was the count? Went the other way, didn't
Yeah.
it? On my vote.
So
Great.
now what's your motion, Gary?
I gotta go work.
Yeah, it's your turn,
so
Gary.
motion fails.
It's a discussion wise, what,
go ahead.
yeah, what data driven decision are we making right now for changing what we're doing when we're not seeing a trending problem?
I've explained my rationale.
No, I mean, well, what data driven decision, what data is changing that makes us need to change what we're doing currently? What problem do we have and why do we need to change it? Because I don't see a problem. So that's why I'm kind of wondering in our absentee rate or in our COVID rate.
Right. For me, I would say that we have this Delta variant, and if we look at our community spread, it's up. We can all agree to that, right? We can look at the graph and we can see community spreads up.
In our community,
Yeah.
in our school, the kids we're responsible for.
Right. We're in Polk
What
County.
happens?
We're not isolated from the community. As everybody said, everybody's out intermingling, right? So we're part of it. So there's that factor that we're looking into it. And this is the recommendation based on CDC, NIH, pediatrics, Academy for Pediatrics. So this is the recommendation. You say, why are we making the change now? The reason is because we had no option to do this before. And yeah, we could have tried to sue the governor or the state, but I think that we're all pretty compliant with the law. We're following the law that's there. We could challenge that for sure. But when you have a signed legislation, I don't think that we have a lot to stand on, pending like a judge's order that happens. So for me, I'm looking at the community trends. I'm looking at the numbers there, and you can say, yeah, our stuff is down. And if we look at our dashboard, it doesn't look too bad, right? But a week ago, 2 weeks ago, it was much higher. And you said yourself, it goes up and down, right? So I feel like for those that can't have the vaccine, why not give them this window of time where it gets approved, it's already submitted, it gets approved, they can get the vaccine. They have an opportunity to do that, and then we can move on. And that's kind of where I'm coming.
Chad?
Yep.
So I'm going to present the motion again without the 60-day requirement. Okay? Are you okay with that? And then we just revisit it sometime in the future. Like we have the masks for K through 6th grade without the amendment on it.
I don't know that changes anyone's.
Yes, yes.
What I'd say on that is that's what I did. I mean, I don't like putting masks on given where our data's at, but I'm a lawyer reading a judge's decision and we're not a party to the suit. We don't have, it's not like we're a litigant in it, but there's a pretty clear message in it, at least for this one judge's opinion about what the law requires. And so
Gary, what's a resolution that?
Well, but what I was gonna say
I'm
is,
trying to
I don't like the 60 day. I don't like the idea of leaving it open to whenever there's a vaccine or whatever, because who knows what, I mean, there's been so many bopping along. I mean, that could be open-ended for who knows. They may not get it right, or they may decide it's not safe. I don't know. If we're gonna do it, because we've, at least in my view, if we have to do it, I want to make sure we're controlling that decision. Brett, you made a good point before. I think we did kind of get, it's inertia. It's like, okay, we've got it. And I remember that vote where we did, and then it's like, you know, it'll be another board member and a new board here soon. But I'd like to keep that decision here at our board table, and hopefully that, you know, if the board then decides they want to change it, that they can, you know, that's.
So can I make another motion?
Before you do, I think what I'm hearing from you, Gary, is the same place that I'm at, that if this goes away on the 11th, you and I.
Oh, this thing's not, well, yeah. Well,
In the-
no,
in the
I mean,
hypothetical
the law's not
case-
going away on the 11th, you know,
Oh,
so.
but if the injunction ends and the law comes back into place, we no longer.
Well,
have
yeah,
this
I mean,
effect,
obviously, if the state law is back to no masks, then
Then it is what it
then
is.
it's no masks.
I mean, I
Right. The board debate here.
I guess I hear what you're saying. I struggle a little bit with the indefinite nature of it. I think that people like to have some level of certainty, and just saying it's going to go on forever. I mean, I don't know that this is part of a motion, but I would say at least my intention would be that when we get to a point where people can be vaccinated, and they've had the opportunity to do that. Unless things are drastically different in the front of COVID and we're in the top of some very large mountain of cases and things change with the profile of how kids are reacting. I mean, there's a lot of variables out there, but you know, my intention would be if we do this, that we give people the time to take that extra step of mitigation, precaution for themselves and their family. And then at that point, even if it's not part of the motion itself, I'm saying
We revisit.
that would be my intention, that we revisit that and look at the conditions at that point. So I guess I'm okay with changing the motion. I just want to make sure that is said out loud and that's the intention.
Right, understood. Okay.
So really quick, our next board meeting is the 7th.
Yep.
The judge's order
Goes to the 11th.
goes to the 11th. Our next board meeting then is the 21st. Just to throw that out there.
Want to table this till the 21st?
No, I
think we-
don't.
No, I think we need to make a decision.
I'm gonna make a motion, Brett.
Please. Okay. Politely asked several times. I get it. Passions out there. It's tough for me because I'm one of those that I like to let people vent, but in order to let the board make a decision, we have to.
I'll tell you what,
We're tying a,
I'll
we're
be here
tying a
afterwards.
motion. We're tying a motion to a vaccine that doesn't even exist for this age group.
It does
I mean,
exist.
not
It's
for
been
this age
studied
group,
and
it
it's,
doesn't.
and
Right,
it's
not for this
submitted.
age group, right? And there's no definite that's coming out. There's no anything. So this is like bordering around getting onto those vaccine mandates and all that kind of stuff again, where you're looking in the future, trying to make projections. And we're not working off of hard data. Our hard data right now says we don't have a problem. But the problem we have is people projecting, right?
Our hard,
People that are reading trends and saying the community, and we have community spread and it's doing this kind of stuff. Guess what? It's not impacting our kids. So and that's I have problem. If it was, then yes, I'd be on board, right? We could do maybe like by building by conditions, like we talked about, right? If we have problems, that's way more tolerable than what we're saying right now is, I know we don't have problems, and I know we've listened to our parents, and I know we have all these people that go both ways, and maybe the majority doesn't want them, but we don't care. I'm an elected official. I do care, right? I take into account what they tell. So my job is to represent them. It's not to take what I think and project it onto everybody else. And that is what happens when we have vaccine mandates and we have all that other kind of garbage. So that's not my job. My job is to do what's best for the children and do what I am as an elected official. My voice is supposed to be their voice. So that's my hope.
Do we have any other motions on the table?
Can I make a motion, please? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion for masks for student, staff, and visitors indoors, PK through 6, so that masks are worn indoors and during the school day.
Second that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The exemption here says something about documented medical or religious reasons. I don't know, maybe this is something that came from the lawyer. I don't know.
Yes.
Is it?
Yep.
Um,
It's the same form that we had last year.
Okay. I guess, I can't remember that form. I think I do remember reading it at some point. I mean, we're not like talking to pastors or,
No.
I would hope it be they complete the form and that's
Yep.
the parent's signature and,
There's a notary.
oh,
piece on
okay, yeah, we want to make sure the parent actually signed it.
that. Right.
Yeah, okay. All right.
And then, I guess to go on top of that, and is the medical saying that they have to have a sign off?
By the doctor.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Do we have an education exemption as well for those that have educational needs?
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
So if someone has a 504 or an IEP that masks would hinder their education, I assume we would allow for an exemption of that under the ADA as well.
It's already written.
That's already part of it. And
So
I
we're just
misspoke. There
clarifying.
is a spot for a doctor's signature.
All right, so we have the motion. Did you get your question answered?
Yeah, I think so.
Do I have a second?
Rick did.
Oh, sorry, okay. All right, just for the record, can you repeat the motion?
Absolutely. Masks for student, staff, and visitors indoors, PK through 6, masks worn indoors and during the school day.
So everybody would be okay with conferences, concerts, any kind of holiday, anything after hours, with no masks,
Yeah, because they're
lunches,
Optional.
lunches, lunches.
we can't do anything about that. It's,
I'm just asking. Okay, my question's answered. So, all right, Karen,
Slings,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yeah.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
no,
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
No.
all right, motion carries. So,
You didn't listen.
okay, thank you.
You're out November 2nd.
Okay, let's not even. Okay, meeting is adjourned. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, I have a second.